We have some developments on the Epstein files. A federal judge has ordered the unsealing of grand jury records, and a bipartisan group of Congress members have asked Pam Bondi to tell them what the DOJ is doing to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. My name is Dina Doll with the MeidasTouch Network. Let's get into this. Now, the federal judge is a federal judge in the Southern District of Florida, has ordered the release of the grand jury records because the Epstein Files Transparency Act now allows for their release. As we know, the DOJ had tried to get those unsealed before and it was denied. We also question whether or not the unsealing of the records is just a distraction because, of course, the DOJ, the FBI already has in possession records. But needless to say, now that this act is going to require even more unsealing of evidence, this federal judge is now unsealing what they have. The information they have has to do with the initial charge of Epstein back in 2007, 2008. We will be able to read and see the testimony from the victims that they gave to the grand jury. It is possible, although so much is already known about what went into the charges back in 2007, 2008, where he got that sweetheart deal. There may still be details that will be able to help people piece more together. Of course, it seems at this point we're just trickling information out. The oversight committee were able to get the release of videos and images from the Epstein Island that was also just released this week. One of those rooms being so disturbing, showing a dentist chair and several masks of men. And Ro Khanna, who has been instrumental in pushing for the initial discharge petition for the release of the Epstein files, which ended up becoming the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which was signed into law on November 19th, wrote in response to the release of this information and how the images have been so disturbing with that particular room with the dentist chair and the multiple male masks, said this on X: every photo, email, and FBI interview must be released while protecting victims. The deadline to release the files under my and Representative Thomas Massie bill is in 16 days. I have always said what will come out will shock the conscience of our nation. He's saying this again to people finding that one dentist room creepy. So we're seeing information be trickled out little by little. We will await now for the unsealing of that grand jury testimony. And then we also have this letter written and signed by members of Congress, of course, Ro Khanna, Thomas Massie, Lisa Murkowski now putting her name on this, as well as Senator Merkley and the other Senator Lujan, also adding it, 5 members, asking Pam Bondi, giving her a deadline of December 5th, which it seems she did not respond to that. At least from this recording, she had not responded to that deadline, asking her to come because the DOJ has 30 days from November 19th to produce the documents under that act. As we know, that is right around the corner. Let's get into what this letter says. The letter is an attempt to keep the focus on the release of the files despite so much other news happening right now, because the deadline is just that short. Again, they have 30 days from November 19th. And they say here, they say, quote, we are particularly focused on understanding the contents of any new evidence, information, or procedural hurdles that could interfere with the department's ability to meet this statutory deadline, end quote. And because of this suspicion that we all have that suddenly it seemed like Trump was okay with this act right as he directs Bondi to open up a new investigation, and that creating a procedural hurdle, as these Congress people are saying. And they're saying, if that's the case, Tell us now. The letter goes on to say, on July 7th, 2025, the Department of Justice published a memo outlining conclusions from an exhaustive review of the investigative holdings relating to Jeffrey Epstein. This memo confirmed that the DOJ Federal Bureau of Investigation did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. That was that infamous, there's nothing new, there's no new investigations. And then, of course, the letter goes on to say, as we all know, on November 14th, the DOJ announced that Jay Clayton, the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, would initiate new investigations into connections between Jeffrey Epstein and former Bill Clinton, former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, and a prominent investor, Reid Hoffman. Again, this was after Trump directs that on his Truth Social post. So they go on to say, you said that you had this new investigation because new information has come forward. If you remember, she kept saying, Pam Bondi, like, there's new information, additional information, new information. So they're saying basically, now that this law is passed, and then you go on and you're talking about this new investigation, in the interest of transparency and clarity on the steps required to faithfully implement the Epstein Files Transparency Act, we request a briefing, either in a classified or unclassified setting, to discuss the full contents of this new information in your possession at your convenience, but no later than Friday, December 5th, 2025. Again, as of this recording, there's been no classified or unclassified briefing here. They're saying basically, put up or shut up. You said that you have some new information, and why you're opening up this new investigation that's somehow we're all supposed to believe it's not because Trump ordered you to do it in order to hide some of these files. But if you said that you have new information, then tell us what that new information is. Of course, we're hearing crickets so far from Pam Bondi about that. The guys at True Classic started with a simple mission to bring premium, comfortable clothing to everyone, because looking and feeling great shouldn't come with a designer price tag. And clearly people agree. They've sold over 25 million shirts to more than 5 million customers, earning 200,000 plus 5-star reviews along the way. That's why I love True Classic for holiday gifting. Their clothes look amazing, feel great, and they're available for your whole family. I originally bought True Classic for my husband. He thought they were so comfortable. I thought they looked flattering, but now they've launched their women's line, so I can finally shop for myself. Their sweatshirts are unbelievably comfortable, but my favorite piece is the tank top because it's so easy to dress up or dress down. So skip the stress and the overpriced designer stuff. Give comfort, confidence. Give True Classic. You can find them on Amazon, Target, Costco, and Sam's Club, or head to trueclassic.com/mistrial to shop the perfect gifts for everyone on your list. And then the letter is also very importantly talking about the survivor's privacy, because the lawyers for survivors said that the DOJ material that came out did not redact victims' names. And so this letter, keeping the focus on the victims. Again, these victims have had to tell their story over and over again. In her book, Virginia Giuffre, Nobody's Girl, talks about the pain and trauma of retelling the story so many times. And then not only them doing it back in 2005 and 2007 and Epstein getting that sweetheart deal. Now Ghislaine Maxwell is getting sent to a cushy, I don't even know what you call it, detention center, jail, very cushy. You have their names coming out, like yet being harmed yet again by this government, yet again being harmed. And so the letter says, in addition, we underscore that protecting survivors' privacy is central to the law's intent. We share concerns. Again, they're sharing the concerns about the lawyers, the victims' lawyers speaking out about this. We share concerns about the department's ability to accurately identify and redact victims' names. The victims' lawyers have far greater knowledge of who these individuals are, and they are prepared to confidentially confidentially transmit names that must be redacted to prevent privacy violations. We urge the department to coordinate directly with these attorneys to establish a secure process to fully protect all victims' identities. Again, this coming very important because the last time the DOJ did not redact victims' names, and this coming from the lawyers. And so these Congress people in their letter saying, the lawyers can tell you the names of the victims. They are literally their clients. They can help you redact so that these victims do not get traumatized. How many different times by Epstein and who else he trafficked them to, the government by not fully prosecuting Epstein, Maxwell, and the co-conspirators, but then again with their privacy. Thankfully, the Congress people, they're keeping the pressure on Pam Bondi, and we're going to keep an eye on the unsealing of the records to see what kind of details there are there to help have justice for the victims. I know when I saw the images for the Epstein Island and hearing all the details Virginia Giuffre puts in her book, and there's so many more details out there that aren't in the book, it's just so disturbing seeing where a lot of that happened and hoping that they get justice finally, these victims. If you haven't yet subscribed to MeidasTouch, be sure to do that. We're getting to 6 million. And please check out the sponsors to the Mistrial podcast linked below. They never censor what I have to say, which is so important in this moment.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.